you know what week this is? It's that week where the Ohio State Buckeyes, number one team in the United States when it comes to college football, defending national champions, have to go up to the big house and play that team up north. And because of cheating in large part, they've lost 4 in a row. But it shouldn't be close this year. Cardell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, the Buckeyes' 2 great receivers, did not play against Rutgers on Saturday. They're just making sure they're healthy, I hope. But the Bucks look real good. Michigan's no layover, though. Not a pushover, not a walkover. So it's going to be a tense week around here. And come next Monday, I'll either be very happy or very sad. We'll worry about that later. I have been working on a column today for the Fox News tomorrow. And I'm going to test it out with you right now. I'm going to test it out with Generalissimo. Because, as we all know, Generalissimo purports to be a baseball umpire.
Okay.
And loves the game. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Fair enough. You love the game. You know what happened to the 1919 White Sox, right?
You mean the Black Sox? Yes.
Yeah. They were, what happened?
They were actually acquitted in court.
Correct. Okay, good.
They were acquitted in court of throwing the World Series, but many people believe it was a kangaroo court and they were bought off, the judge was bought off, all that kind of stuff. But the owners of baseball decided for the first time ever that they had a PR problem on their hands, so they brought in a commissioner for the first time.
Judge
Kennesaw
Mountain
Landis, who was a retired judge. And he would only...
He might have actually been an active judge, Dwayne. I believe he was active. But district court.
Okay.
He served on the district court until 1920. He became commissioner in 1920, so I don't think he was retired.
Well, okay. The only way he would take the gig is if he had absolute dictatorial control. If he could make whatever rules he wanted, edicts he wanted, and his term was... for life.
Yeah, okay. So all 8 players were banned for life, regardless of the fact they were acquitted. Now, that's example number 1. Example number 2, Pete Rose. Do you remember the facts of the Pete Rose case?
Yes. Gambling on baseball, but theoretically at least never against his own team to lose.
Or for his own team, right?
Or for his own team.
He didn't bet on games in which he was a manager, and therefore it was illegal at the time what he did.
Yep.
Because it wasn't the era of gambling we're living in now. Now we are confronted with 2 Cleveland Guardians players, Emmanuel Clase and Jose Ortiz. And they're both, I'm assuming, guilty. I read parts of the indictment, and they put balls in the dirt. There's probably nothing easier to guarantee than throwing a ball in baseball. You think that's the easiest thing to guarantee?
Yes.
Yeah, you just put it in the dirt like 8 feet, and it's a leadoff hitter. And the good news about it being a leadoff hitter is that you're not going to really impact the flow of the game. You do impact the flow of the game because you've thrown a pitch.
Right.
And that's a minuscule advantage for the other team. But it's a proposition bet, meaning the proposition, a prop bet, is that you'll throw a ball or a strike, and you're allowed to bet on that. So they threw balls. It is alleged that the people that they were in cahoots with won $400,000, and I believe they won between 10 and 20% of it. It was really dumb, really, really dumb. Because especially nowadays, gambling companies have Overwatch. They've got major league eyes on this, and it's computerized, so they notice. What do they notice, Dwayne?
They will notice hustle plays. They will notice how hard you, in the outfield, how hard you charge.
Oh, you're thinking about the player. I'm thinking about the gambling.
Well, okay.
They're going to notice how much money comes in on a bet.
Well, sure.
So if every other bet on a prop, ball, or strike is X, and all of a sudden you get 10X on that bet at the beginning of a game, their little spidey sense is going to tingle. So these guys are looking at up to 65 years in prison. They won't get that. It's their first offense for both of them. Nonviolent offense. They'll get probation and community service.
Well, but they'll be banned from baseball for life.
Well, that's what I'm writing about. I don't think they should be. And my proposition, I'd love to hear from the audience, I'd love to hear your take on this, is they ought to be allowed to return to the game for as long as they can play. In their first year, 9/10 of theirs, they're not allowed to go back to the Guardians. Guardians failed. Guardians did not teach their players not to bet, so the Guardians don't get the benefit of their services. But they're 27 years old. They come from a poor country. They've got big families that depend upon them. If you ban them from life, their life is ruined.
I don't care.
I know you don't care, but I'm saying I do care. I don't think it's proportionate or just to ruin someone's life because they are products of the DR. I've been to the DR. You don't want to go to the DR unless you're staying at a resort, and they didn't grow up on a resort.
Right.
And they got very little in the way. I watched one Classe interview. He doesn't speak any English. They're just not going to win the spelling bee, these guys. So my proposal is however long. If they play 1 year, 90% of their salary goes to Major League Baseball to distribute as it sees fit to charitable organizations, maybe on behalf of baseball, but they got nothing to do with it. If they play 2 years, 80% of their salary goes, 3 years, 90%, 70%, and so on. If they play longer than 10 years, unlikely for a reliever who's 27, Ortiz, 26, maybe a starter, they can have their money back. What's wrong with that result?
Because you've destroyed the integrity of the game. You can't,
no, I haven't. You've punished them.
No, you have not, because you let them back in and they can do it again. If an umpire throws a game, and believe me, umpires have thrown games.
What?
Yeah, they have thrown games before.
Umpires?
Yes.
Umpires?
Yes.
You're kidding me.
Yes.
Meaning you.
No, not meaning me.
You are an umpire.
I'm not a paid umpire.
Oh, you were paid.
No, I was not. That is absolutely...
they flew you to the Little League ball... Didn't they fly you to the Little League championship?
Who's they?
The league that you showed up for?
A travel ball team did, but that's...
So you were paid.
But I don't... No, that was for a week. That was for a tournament.
You were paid. You're paid professional.
No.
You're a professional umpire.
No, that's nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. That's like an Olympian. That's like an Olympian. You're taking away his or her amateur status.
You're like Darth Vader in Star Wars, where the guy says, where Darth Vader crushed his neck because he didn't like the way he said "sir." I'm for mercy on Thanksgiving week. Look at all you've been blessed with. Why are you so harsh on these guys
because
from the DR?
The integrity of the game matters. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Take Shohei Ohtani, right? Greatest player maybe ever in history.
I'd gladly take him to Cleveland, yes.
Okay. Do you think he gambled?
No.
You really don't?
I don't.
You're the only one.
Well, I might be, but I know these guys did. And I know that what we're trying to do
Why do you think that Shohei and the interpreter's little gambling episode, why do you think that was not pursued?
Because I think it was just the trainer who did it. But that's not my point. They're not Ohtani. They don't have billions in the bank. And if you're saying that baseball is corrupt and they didn't investigate Ohtani, but they are investigating Classe, that's even worse.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The integrity of the game is on the line here because you can't trust anybody now.
Doesn't make it. If the integrity is on the game, already blown. If you think Ohtani was given a free pass,
I think he was.
Well, then the integrity doesn't exist, so there's no reason to impose it on Classe and Ortiz.
You don't regain that credibility. You don't even take the steps necessary to regain the credibility by excusing more bad behavior.
No, I'm not excusing it. They're going to play forever, pay and pay and pay. So here's what I'm asking my subtexters to do. I'm going to talk with Senator Houston, and I'm going to come back to this. I'm really trying to figure out a way that they don't ruin these people's lives, because you shouldn't have your life ruined for a misdemeanor.
How old are they?
27.
27 years old.
Yep.
Okay.
I still don't think they should ruin their lives.
Okay. Can they vote?
No, they're the DR. They're not American citizens.
Okay. So they're here on a work permit, on a visa, basically?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
cheated, and they're criminals, and they should pay. This is completely opposite of the criminal process. It's just what Rob Manfred,
They,
who has not made a good decision in his life. Get used to that bump music. It's game week. So it pretty much opens every segment, including this one with Senator John Huston of Ohio, who I'm sure has sung this a few times lustily at the shoe and agrees with me that that team up north should be thrashed. Are you looking forward to the game? Are you going to get to go to it, Senator?
I'm definitely looking forward to the game. I will not be watching the Buckeyes beat Michigan this week. Confident that that will be the outcome.
Okay, well, I am too, and then we can go on to the playoffs thereafter. Senator, I wanted to ask you something. After 10/7, 2+ years ago, I went down to the March for Israel on the Mall, and of course there were Jewish congregations from Philadelphia and from Boston and from Atlanta, and then bang, 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 big bunch of buses from the Jewish community of Cleveland, big group of buses from the Jewish community of Columbus, enormous number of buses from the Jewish community in Cincinnati. And it dawned on me that, of course, it was a decent enough bus ride, but they would, of course, come. Have you been talking with the Jewish communities in Ohio about Campaign 2026 and why they should support you?
Yes. We have a lot of support from Jewish communities across the state. But Hugh, that for me, that support is not, something that's come as of late. I have had a long relationship with the Jewish community in Ohio and my role in state government and in supporting a variety of things, particularly education. There were a lot of particularly Orthodox Jewish community members who were very, very, very supportive of the Ed Choice Scholarship, which is a voucher program in the state of Ohio that I created to give school choice for every child in the state. And so I got a lot of support early on in my career in that. But a lot of them are also very concerned about the anti-Semitism on campuses and coming from a variety of places. So I have a long relationship in supporting Judeo-Christian values and getting political support for people who see the world likewise.
Well, now I listened today to a podcast by Dan Senor that featured Dan, Barry Weiss, Ben Shapiro, and they were all talking about how Jewish communities around the United States have to kind of muscle up and get ready for a long stretch of anti-Semitic hatred in the United States. Do you think that's going to be the case in Ohio?
I hope not. I mean, we've seen some of it. There was an imam here in Columbus who was saying some pretty harsh anti-Semitic things about violence against Israel and Jews, and on college campuses. We saw it in college campuses in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, Toledo, other places. But I don't think it's like it is in some of the hotbeds around the country, particularly on the east and west coast. We have Midwest nice here. We try to get along with everyone and show a lot of respect for everybody, no matter what your religion, your race, whatever it is. So I'm hopeful that the Midwest will not experience it. But as you know, it only takes one crazy person, one terrible sick person to create a tragic situation. So we always have to keep our guards up.
Now, your likely opponent is Sherrod Brown, who is a former senator. I don't think he knows what to do with his life since he was in government for 50 years until he lost last time to Bernie Moreno. So he's back on the hustings, et cetera. But his party's gone way to the left. Does he get to have it both ways, an anti-Semitic party, and it really has become anti-Semitic with Mamdani and AOC and Bernie Sanders? Or does he get to separate himself from that wing of his party and say, that's not me, I'm a moderate? He's not. He's a hard left guy, but I think he's going to try.
Yeah, well, he's aligned with the university crowd that supports the anti-Semitic environment on college campuses. That's who he is. That's who he's been. He's not going to be able to escape the Mondamis and all of the members of Congress who have been very anti-Semitic, and he's not denounced them. He's not stepped aside or away from them, and he's not earned the support. And we fully intend to make sure that people know about that.
Now, Senator, You don't look like you're in your Senate office, so I could ask what your campaign website is without getting you in trouble with the Senate ethics rules. What is the website where people can support you?
HughSteadForSenate.com. Yeah. Look, we need your help because my opponent outraised me 2-1. He raised more in one day than we did in 3 months, and so we need support. HughSteadForSenate.com, and literally, he's been in office for 50 years. You said that. I know when someone says that, like it seems like no, that can't be true. You must be joking. He was running for the state legislature when he was a student at Yale. Okay, and he lost last year to Bernie Moreno. And what did he do? He went back and taught at Harvard. But he had been in Congress for 32 years, 32 years, and has a more liberal voting record than Bernie Sanders. He's just too liberal for Ohio. That's why Ohioans sent him packing last year when Bernie Moreno beat him by over 200,000 votes. But he's back. He's got Chuck Schumer came to Ohio twice to recruit him. He's got a lot of money from the left in LA and in New York. He's actually got a fundraiser in the coming weeks in Hollywood, sponsored by the CEO of Sony Pictures. He's got Ari Emanuel coming. He's got the whole left-wing crowd out there supporting him. So, we just need a good old grassroots support from conservative Ohioans and Americans to help us out.
Yeah, what I figure about Sherrod Brown, people hear that 50 years and they really don't believe it, but he did graduate from Yale, go right into the state legislature, then he went to the House of Representatives, then he went to the Senate. He's never had a job other than where he actually signed the paycheck on the front. He's never done that. So, Senator Houston, are you going to debate the guy, or are you going to just say, nah, everybody knows who Sherrod Brown is, we don't need to debate?
I haven't even really thought about that. He refused to debate Bernie Moreno when Bernie Moreno ran against him. He refused to stand up because he knew that he couldn't defend his 32-year record in Congress. Like, what has he done with it? Name something that he did other than run up $38 trillion in national debt. I mean, that's what you get from him. He is a socialist, essentially. He's ascribes to those views and has bankrupted the country and done nothing, given us nothing in return. And plus, he's just too liberal for Ohio. My goodness, he's so far out there on the left wing of the Democratic Party. He's more aligned with the radical left than he is with Midwestern values. And I think the contrast with me just being an Ohio guy who, was started out in foster care, was adopted, grew up in a blue collar family, and I welcome the contrast.
I do too. HughSteadForSenate.com, HUSTED for Senate.com. If you're listening to me in any of my many stations in Ohio, go and volunteer for the campaign, no matter where you are in the United States. Send them 10, 25, 50 bucks. Let's get the fundraising going because the groups will be in. They're going to try a Hail Mary in Ohio, even though it's ruby red. And John Huston's a good senator. Senator Houston, thank you for joining me. Welcome back, America. It's my favorite week of the year. Some people love Easter, some people love Christmas. I love Thanksgiving. And not because of Thanksgiving, but because the game is on Saturday. The greatest rivalry in all of sports. The Ohio State University versus that team up north. Playing in the big house. And that means going into a hostile environment. I got a true freshman quarterback up there. And we have Julian Sand, Heisman Trophy leader, I would guess. But Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. Didn't play on Saturday. We don't know. I'll ask Doug Lamariz that a little bit later. News today, Israel killed another top Hezbollah commander. Number one, their chief of staff, their military chief of staff. Hezbollah is going to be reduced to nothing, either the hard way or the easy way, and the Lebanese army is not doing it, so let's hope that they get moving doing it. Let me make my first of many asks for the Christmas season. We start early. If you go over to HughHewitt.com, the Angel Tree banner is at the top. Angel Tree gets a present under every tree for every child that they can serve who has a mom and or a dad in jail, in prison, sometimes for many years. Sometimes they've been in prison for a long time, and sometimes it's the first year that mom or dad will be away, sometimes both parents. Angel Tree steps into the breach. It's a Ministry of Prison Fellowship. And all I can tell you is they've been doing it for so many years, I can't remember how long they've been doing it. And almost everyone in my audience who has a church will know them because they're on most church patios. But sometimes you don't want to be seen giving. Sometimes you want to give anonymously. That is, in fact, the injunction of the gospel. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. If that's you, understand every $30 provides a gift for one of the children of Angel Tree. So if you'll head over today and you give $150, can you do the math, Steelers fans? It's 15 gifts. And if you give $300, that's 30 gifts. Made it very easy for you. Please be as generous as possible. You will find the banners at the top of HughHewitt.com. It's completely secure. You can't go wrong. Thank you in advance. I'm going to remind you a lot about Angel Tree because the number of people, the amount of money we raise directly impacts the number of children who get a gift, a Bible, a contact with the prison fellowship ministry team. Most importantly, a note from mom and or dad on Christmas morning saying, this is from me to you, son, daughter. I love you. I can't be there, but I'm thinking of you. It means the world to them. Thank you in advance. But speaking about protection, time to tell you about WebRoot Total Protection. Some people are already making their Friday plans. Friday is, of course, Black Friday and then Cyber Monday. This is the time of the year when the cyber thieves come out. It's the time of the year that you really need to protect yourself online and you need to protect your family, and you can do it with WebRoot Total Protection. Keep your devices safe, your identity secure, your privacy locked down. Get 75% off WebRoot Total Protection at webroot.com/Hewitt. That's 75% off. Black Friday through Cyber Monday is the busiest shopping time of the year. For hackers and identity thieves, it's the Super Bowl. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Get protected now. With my exclusive discount, WebRoot Total Protection is less than $50 for the whole year. All-in-one protection, devices, identity, privacy, even backup for $50. Give yourself peace of mind. Go to webroot.com/Hewitt, 75% off for a limited time. And Relief Factor is the gift you can give yourself. I got my 6 miles in today because it's beautiful inside the Beltway. First time in a long time. And felt good about it. And I got to tell you, that's not to be taken for granted because I had Teddy Tree Trunk on Saturday night. Got up early Saturday, drove the 3 hours to my daughter's house. I was the babysitter in residence because it was the teenager's birthday and slumber party. So my daughter took them out to see Wicked. Thank goodness I didn't have to see that. But I had the other three, including Tree Trunk Teddy and Genghis Kate. Genghis Kate tricked me. A very, very, very smart trick. But I'm on to it now. It won't get me the second time. But I survived, even T-Rex Teddy, Tree Trunk Teddy, because I've got my 4 pills from ReliefFactor.com. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, omega. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you know I take it every day. I came bruised, battered, but I am not hurting. Got my 6 miles in this morning. Didn't matter how many times I picked up that block of granite named Teddy. Did not matter how often I had to pry Kate out of small places. Didn't matter. All the things that can go wrong if you're getting the platter down, if you're getting ready to start cooking, if you've been to Costco. I myself had a tire problem, which I'll tell you about later in the show, and that didn't give me any back problems. I'm telling you, Relief Factor, call 1-800-4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com, $19.95 for the 3-week starter pack, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com. I'm not going to make Ambassador Michael Oren listen to my routine incantation of bad things on the team up north for this week. Dr. Michael Oren, welcome back. Good to talk to you. I have in my hand the Wall Street Journal story. Israel says it killed top Hezbollah commander in Beirut. I thought we did that a long time ago. Who is he and how important is this?
Tabatabai is the second in command of Hezbollah after the leaders of Hezbollah were eliminated during the war, including Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. This is the gentleman who's in charge of rebuilding Hezbollah and has been assiduously rebuilding Hezbollah, particularly in the south, in flagrant violation of the ceasefire. And Israel has been interdicting many of these attempts, but at some point you got to get to the head of the snake. And the head of the snake, what can we do? Is sitting in Beirut. And I think it's very good that the Trump administration has been solidly behind us on this. We've had some friction points around Gaza recently. Meetings between the president and Mamdani didn't go over particularly well in Jerusalem. But this was very, very important. This is strategic. This is substantive. This is not performative, and this goes to the core of our strategic relationship with the United States. We're braced. We're braced for a reprisal. I find it hard to believe that Hezbollah will take this, sitting down entirely. But with Hezbollah, they may not want to take us on frontally, but they may try to do as they have in the past, conduct a terrorist attack against some Jewish community around the world.
Now, I was under the impression that while the Lebanese army had not done the disarmament of the Hezbollah militia, that the Hezbollah militia was in tatters, that they were not really reassembling and as a formidable force. Am I wrong about that?
Oh no, they were hit hard. I wouldn't call them in tatters. They probably maintain upwards of 60% of their missile capacity. Tens of thousands of fighters, guerrillas, terrorists under arms. And what really was deathly hurt was their long-range missile capacity, their leadership, and their infrastructure in South Lebanon. And we're talking about miles and miles of underground tunnels, which are in many ways more impregnable than the tunnels in Gaza. The tunnels in Gaza are dug in sand. The tunnels in Lebanon here were dug in rock, solid rock, and they're difficult to detect and even more difficult to blow up.
So when that war was going on, it concluded about a year ago, what percentage of objectives did the IDF accomplish?
I think we may have killed as many as 30,000 terrorists. We probably have knocked out about 40 to 50% of their missile capacity. But more significantly, as I said earlier, was eliminating their leadership, their top leadership, and eliminating their infrastructure, the military infrastructure in South Lebanon. You're talking about vast amounts of armaments, missiles, rockets, emplacements. Much of that was destroyed. Now, it was incumbent as part of the ceasefire on the Lebanese government then to disarm Hezbollah, particularly in the south. And I don't want to fault the Lebanese government too much. It's not a strong government, and the army is very weak, have not been able to fulfill those conditions under the ceasefire. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Trump administration is standing so steadfastly beside us on this, because they understand that there was a commitment made by the Lebanese that they cannot fulfill. I don't think there's a matter of willpower here. They just cannot do it. Hezbollah before last year was was deemed the most powerful non-government military force in the world, not just in the Middle East, but in the world. And what's the Lebanese army up against that?
Well, that leads me to the question: who actually keeps the peace in Beirut? There's no monopoly on arms. There are lots of arms everywhere. But is there a police force that actually, gives out speeding tickets and arrests drunk drivers and things like that?
Yeah, probably. They probably give out speeding tickets. I don't think they pays them. You're not dealing with a truly sovereign state here, alas. And in the past, Lebanon has been Hobbesian, certainly during the Civil War in the 1970s, and more recently. You remember several years ago, there was a massive blast in Beirut Harbor.
Yes. That
was attributed to mounds of huge warehouses of fertilizer. Who was using that fertilizer? I think Hezbollah's in the agricultural business, and they use it for bombs.
Yeah.
And it killed hundreds and hundreds of people, wounded thousands of people. Was ever an investigation of it? No. There's no accountability there. The banking system is, I don't know what it runs on, but it certainly doesn't run according to law. So it's a very different country. We wish it was different. We wish it was a more stable country, a more centralized country. It's not there yet, but certainly the sine qua non of becoming that type of country is getting rid of Hezbollah, certainly disarming Hezbollah. Now, another great blow to Hezbollah was the fact that Syria is no longer an ally of Iran, so that overland route of supply to Lebanon has been cut off, and much of the supply of not just armaments, but also money flowing in has been cut off. And Israel targeted a great number of banks that were controlled by Iran and Syria in Beirut during the war. So that also is a blow to Hezbollah, but they remain a formidable force. We can't afford to ignore them.
Is there any leader or movement that is emerging as an alternative for a strong Lebanon, one free of the grip of Hezbollah? Does that exist?
I think President Aoun's heart is in the right place. I think that if the West, and particularly the United States, wants the Lebanese army to be a formidable force, they're going to invest much more heavily. I've heard about that the pay for a Lebanese soldier is pretty much imaginary. It's pretty pro forma, and that's just that can't be enough. You have to actually incentivize these people to take up arms, and it has to be a multi-ethnic group. You can't have a Sunni army facing off Shiites in Hezbollah. There has to be Shiites, Sunnis, Druze, Christians all together in a national army, and that is not easily done, by the way. But that is the goal.
We're not going to do that. Does any European power like France have the standing to assist them in rebuilding Lebanon? Because right now it just seems like chaos with the decapitated Hezbollah.
Yeah, I hate to sound cynical, but I'm not sure France has the ability to rebuild France.
Huh. I think you're right. I think, unfortunately, so is there anything to turn to, or do we just let it meander on? We have a minute, Mike. Does it just meander on with no plan?
Listen, we be strong. We'll be strong. We'll stand by it. Actually, the Lebanon will condemn us every day. The Lebanese government knows that in many ways we are doing their work for them. We're helping to disband Hezbollah. We're helping to disarm them. They cannot say that publicly. But behind the scenes, I'm sure that's what they're thinking. And I think that's what the Trump administration is thinking. We're doing, I don't want to say we're doing God's work, but we're certainly doing a very important job in Lebanon right now. If I have a second, just want to give you greetings from the wonderful people of Ocean Reef, where I was this week. You're big fans down there, Hugh. They love you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and a welcome to hear that. Hello, Ocean Reef. Thank you so much. Dr. Oren, thank you for joining me. I know you're doing a debate circuit, and you're going into the Lion's Den somewhere. I heard it on Dan Senor's program earlier today, so good luck with that. I'll be right back, America. Follow Michael at Dr. Michael Oren on X, Dr. Michael Oren, and his website, his Substack is Clarity. You know what you could use for the Ohio State game this weekend is a besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. They are running an amazing sale right now, and there's no better time to get a Best Hot Grill than in time for the game, which will begin, I think, the beginning of then. Ohio State has to play in Indianapolis, probably against Indiana for the Big Ten championship. Then there's a small chance, that they have to play Michigan back-to-back. But then they go on a run of 3 playoff games, so they got to win 5 games in a row. So if you want to be outfitted for those 5 games, you want besthotgrill.com for yourself. And they're running a great sale right now. Wonderful sale. Go over to besthotgrill.com. I want to look it up and see if I can make sure I get the exact numbers right, Dwayne. Through December 5, they're offering a 25% discount off Solaire Anywhere and Solaire Everywhere portable grills. Also through December 5, when you purchase a 27-inch or larger Solaire infrared grill, you'll receive a free stainless steel griddle and a quality USA-made cover to protect your investment. That's a $650 value. Do not settle for second best, not for yourself, not for your clients. Go to besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. Take advantage of these holiday specials and give your customers, your friends, your clients, and yourself the grill that guarantees victory on Saturday. Rhett probably roots for Ohio State. He's a good man. Irene does too. I'm sure she does. So they're good people at Best Hot Grill, so they're rooting for the Buckeyes. Let me also tell you, save some money. It's the holiday season. One trip to Costco will knock you over. You might as well save some money and do it every month with your cell phone plan. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. ConsumerCellular.com/Hugh. Or you can call 1-800-411-4454. 1-800-411-4454. Third time. 1-800-411-4454. Whether you go to consumercellular.com/Hugh or you call 1-800-411-4454, remember to use my code HUGH25 and save an additional $5 a month for your first 5 invoices. You can have savings without sacrifice. And especially if you're 50 years and older, you don't know what you're paying for your cell phone bill. Right now you're in a carpool. Maybe you got picked up at the corner of 14th and Constitution. You're driving down the 395 inside the Beltway. Look at each other and ask each other, how much do you pay for your cell phone? No one's going to know. No one's going to know. They signed up for some plan sometime, and by the time they got out of there, they have no idea what they bought. I'm here to tell you, if you're over 50, you're paying too much. You can get 2 lines, unlimited data, same number, same data, keep everything, takes 20 minutes to switch. 2 lines, unlimited data, $60 a month for people who are 50 years and older. Don't wait another day, save yourself some money. Go to consumercellular.com/Hugh or call 1-800-411-4454. No matter when you're listening, where you're listening, welcome on this Thanksgiving week. We got a lot to be thankful for in the United States of America. One of those is Leland Vittert. We're very thankful for Leland and his new book, Born Lucky. Hello, Leland. How are you? Happy Thanksgiving.
And to you, Hugh, thank you. And I am thankful for you. You were one of the very first people to get behind Born Lucky and to really understand what this story was about.
Well, it was because it was so surprising and so well written. I want to remember that I have some new affiliates who weren't around when Born Lucky came out, and you and I had a long conversation about your life growing up with autism and the fact that I didn't know, nobody knew, and we just didn't have a clue that you were on the spectrum. Can you tell us what the ride has been like since Born Lucky dropped?
It's been extraordinary, and Hugh, you really called this, because what we've learned is that Born Lucky is hope for every parent of a kid having a hard time. Doesn't matter if it's ADHD or autism or anxiety or bullying or the difficulties of growing up. Born Lucky is proof of what great parenting can do, and it's proof of the power and the agency that parents have to have this remarkable impact on their kids' lives, and it's why it's hit such a chord. I've gotten hundreds, maybe now 1,000 emails from families, and not just one line, thanks for the book, but paragraphs upon paragraphs about how they now don't feel alone because they realize that so many parents are struggling the way my parents did. You know, no one was told, not my friends, not my family, not my parents' friends, no teachers, no counselors, nobody, that I was diagnosed with autism when I was 8 years old. And my parents struggled silently. I didn't know until I interviewed my mom and dad for the book that oftentimes after my dad would spend a couple of hours in my bedroom, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whatever it was, sort of putting me back together from the social and emotional torture of the day and the isolation and the bullying. You know, he'd leave my room, I'd go to sleep or do my homework, and he'd walk downstairs into our living room back home that was dark and he was alone, and he'd sit there by himself and cry. And my mom would find him at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I think that experience of what parents are going through right now and them realizing they're not alone is why Born Lucky has hit such a chord. Now,
Leland, how many people are like me that they read it and they say, Leland has autism? I mean, I really was, this is Leland Vittert, like the News Nation guy? And I read it, and I'm persuaded, of course, you didn't make it up. Who would make that up? And your mechanism for dealing with it was remarkable, even at a young age. It's fantastic now. But am I alone, or did everyone say, really?
Well, I think there was a lot of people who knew me quite well, Hugh, who kind of went, yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of things that now make sense. And I heard from a few colleagues, actually former colleagues from a while ago, who wrote me and said, you know, so many things that we couldn't figure out about you now make sense. So that I think was true. What I think is so stunning about the reception, Hugh, is I have done interviews. I think we've done 165 interviews now, everywhere
Wow.
from Steve Bannon on the right to Joe Scarborough on the left. And every one of them, the host has either been in tears or near tears. You're one of the cold-hearted people, Hugh, who this Born Lucky story doesn't affect. But it has resonated in a way that I think no other story really can, because that power of parental love and championing a kid and wanting your kid to be more is universal across the political spectrum. And, you know, Amazon picked up Born Lucky. It's now 25% off for Black Friday, because I think they realized also that this has an effect so far beyond autism. It's really for every parent. I think you said, you know, every father should read this book. And it's that message that has really resonated.
So let's pause on that. Black Friday is Friday. That's when Amazon, everybody goes shopping online and everybody goes shopping at the mall. Amazon's knocked off 25% for Black Friday. Is it just Black Friday?
No, it's starting right now. So it's on sale. It started last Thursday. Don't get into a car accident, but if you go to Amazon right now, and I know, Hugh, you have the link as well to tweet out, Amazon, it's 25% off right now through Monday. So, and make sure you get it now because it has had a tendency to sell out at times.
That's a good problem to have, and I will do that. I will post the link over at X as soon as I'm done talking with Leland. Leland, the people who wrote you back, did they say, now I understand why you were, abrupt, or why you didn't react
abrupt,
the way I thought?
abrasive? Yeah. That you were difficult, that you were pushy, that you didn't understand when to shut up. My wife would tell me I still don't understand when to shut up. Those kinds of things. And, Hugh, I think what's interesting is I'll always be autistic, right? It's just that I've learned, and it's a learned skill, it's a discipline, how to manage it and how to deal with it and how to overcome it. And, there's a lot of, I think in the book, I sort of compared it to alcoholism. Is it something you always have to struggle with and fight and realize at times that my social instincts are wrong, and then go back to the training that my dad did. My dad spent hours every week, but really hours every day, trying to train me in social interaction. I told this story the last time we were together, but he would take me to lunch, and I would have loved to have gone to lunch with Mr. Hewitt because Dad was my only friend. So the stuff we talked about was politics, current events, news, and business. And he would take me to lunch with all of his friends. And the deal was you can come to lunch, and that's the only, time you're going to be able to spend with anybody because kids didn't want to spend time with me. But when I tap my watch, you need to stop talking. So Hugh, you would have been talking about, your grandkids or whatever, and I would have interrupted and started talking to you about, are we going to invade Venezuela? And my dad would tap his watch and I'd stop. And then later that day, he'd come back to me. It was a bookmark, right? He said, okay, so when Mr. Hewitt was talking about his grandkids, why did you interrupt and talk about Venezuela? Well, I don't know, Dad. It was in the news. And Dad said, right, but what could you have talked about that Mr. Hewitt would have been interested? Well, I don't know. He was talking about his grandkids. Okay, so then Dad would role play. Well, ask me about my grandkids. What are their names? What are their ages? What do they like to do? What would Mr. Hewitt like to talk about his grandkids? And that's how he taught me at that granular level when I was 8. And then obviously later on in life, I've just tried to extend those lessons.
Now, what I've reminded people of since we had our interview, Leland, is that in your book, Born Lucky, you are careful to point out every single person who was nice and or good to you, from being just a regular friend at high school to being a teacher that went out of the way to encourage you, of course, your mom and your dad, but that you did not name a single person who was a jerk, which is an act of grace on your part. I am curious if other people notice that. Anyone else bring that up in the course of the interviews, that you are not in the vendetta business?
Yes. You were the first, but others certainly have. This wasn't about score settling. Don't worry, I do still remember everybody's name who was mean. My little sister really remembers them. But I think it has proven to be really, I don't want to say a smart decision, but I think it has proven to be the right decision because it allows everybody to focus on what is really good, and the people who help me and the people who are nice to me. And that's really what matters. And I've also, the ... to the question is, have you heard from any of the people who were really mean? The people who the stories in the book were about, the teacher who, said in front of the entire class in 8th grade, hey, Vittert, if my dog was as ugly as you, I'd shave its bleep and make it walk backwards, right? Haven't heard from him. Haven't heard from any of those people. The flip side is I've heard from so many people who this book has helped and who now don't feel alone. That's what's made the Born Lucky story and telling this story publicly. I never talked about this with anybody. My dad didn't. Even his friends didn't know. And I think a lot of them now have sort of understood why he took a step back and why he was always at home and on and on and on now in a way that they never did.
Now, the question I didn't ask that I had meant to ask the first time around, you ran that big summer house, which you loved on the shore of the lake, that people would run through. It was like a rooming house. Someone always knew. Yeah. How long did it take them for them to figure out that Leland was different from a normal kid?
Well, the house was my parents' summer house, still is, and it was all of my dad's friends and all of his business associates and all of his, friends from college and everything else. So this was not a hotel, although I think at one point we had more Coca-Cola products delivered to our house than they did to the local supermarket at one point, just because we had
It
so many
sounded
house
like
guests.
it was pretty much a hotel. Yeah, people were rolling through
Yeah.
there by the Legion.
Yeah, but it was great. And as a kid who, had no social interaction ever with kids their own age, it was such an escape. And the people there always, as the adults, were always nice to me, as I know, Hugh, you would have been.
Born Lucky is available right now. I'm going to go put it on X. Go and get 25% off. Give it to every dad, every parent, every kid who's struggling with anything, no matter what it is. Doesn't have to be autism, just struggling with anything. It's a great lift. It's a great inspiration. Leland Vittert, always good to see you, friend. Be well. Wanted to play enough of that Senator Tom Cotton, my guest from Arkansas, could hum it the rest of the week. Teach it to everyone on his staff and his family so that they can all sing that as well. Senator Cotton, does Arkansas have a rivalry week? Do they have anyone that comes to town?
Well, we've got lots of rivals throughout the SEC, Hugh. Unfortunately, we're not doing a very good job of beating many of them this year.
That's okay. I'm not sure the SEC is going to get 3 teams in this time. We'll see. Senator Cotton, in all seriousness, I have not reported on the Russia-Ukraine negotiations because it seems to me there's a lot of purposeful disinformation being pushed out by everybody. What's your understanding of the situation right now?
Well, Hugh, I think the president he's long been is committed to trying to achieve a just and durable peace there, given the realities on the ground. Secretary Rubio was just in Geneva meeting with President Zelensky's team. They appear to have made some progress in protecting the key concerns of Ukraine, and that anyone who wants to ensure Ukraine's independence and sovereignty, like the president does, like you and I do, and make sure there's not a war in the future. Just a few of those items would be one, for Ukraine to have defensible terrain. I think it's obvious at this point that Ukraine is not going to be able to win back the territory they've lost, at least not in the short term, and that there will be some territory that remains under Russian control. But what absolutely cannot happen is that Ukraine be reduced to borders that are not defensible. And here, terrain and geography matters quite a bit. Second, that Ukraine have a military that can defend itself. The president has rightly urged our allies in Europe and Asia to do more to defend themselves, spend their own tax dollars on their military. Ukraine's been doing that. We don't want to deter them from doing it. 3, I think it's important that we not grant recognition to any of the territory that Russia has unlawfully seized. We haven't done that in Georgia for 17 years, and for 75 years we didn't do it in the Baltic states. We never recognized Soviet Russia's sovereignty over Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, nor should we do that in Ukraine.
Now, one of the things that happened over the weekend was a much wringing of hands over the United States pressure on Ukraine to allegedly give up cities that had not been taken by the Russians. That's been walked back, but it does seem to me that the media is more eager to criticize Trump than they are to know what's in the deal. Have you noticed that?
Well, that's typical for the liberal media with Donald Trump and really from most Republicans. And I agree that from the leaks that came out last week, that was one area of concern. It's important to note that the battlefield is shifting every day. Russia has made gains, for instance, around the town of Pokrovsk, but Ukraine has also made gains. Now, these gains are very small here. You're talking about gains in hundreds of meters at a time, to give you a sense of just how grinding the war on the Eastern Front has become. In the end, those small tactical differences of territory are not terribly troubling for long-term strategic stability. What would be troubling is if Ukraine ends up surrendering key defensive terrain. Again, terrain matters a lot. I'm in East Arkansas right now, and this is farm country. It's very flat. It's not very defensible. The terrain that Ukraine retains has to be defensible, because if it's not, if Russia ends up taking territory that is behind defensible lines, that allows Vladimir Putin or whoever follows him in the future to basically have a thunder run from their line of contact to Kyiv in the future. So I really can't stress on how important it is that once there is a ceasefire in any kind of peace agreement, that Ukraine retain defensible lines and the military that can defend those lines.
You know, that is, I've been covering with Dr. Leon, president of Hillsdale College, Winston Churchill's World War II memoirs, and we're in the first volume, The Gathering Storm. When the Munich Agreement came down, Czechoslovakia gave up their line of fortresses, which Germany occupied in the Sudetenland. And then when they decided to swallow up the rest of Czechoslovakia, it was easy to do because they'd given up their fortresses. That we're not insisting on Ukraine doing anything like that, to your knowledge, are we?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine that Donald Trump would know that. He knows those lessons of history. And, you know, there's a long chain of appeasement of Germany in the 1930s. Some of that was more consequential than others, but the example I cite to you is the most consequential of all. It's not just that Czechoslovakia had to give up more territory. That territory was specifically designed and built up for years to be the defensive line against a German invasion, with
Correct.
bunkers and trenches and artillery positions and other kinds of reinforcements. Ukraine has done something similar on territory that is still in Ukrainian hands, and that's why it's so important that that defensible territory that has been built up now for 11 years remain in Ukrainian hands.
And now to switch subjects on our last minute, Senator. Lebanon was the scene of another Israeli attack that took out the chief of staff of the Hezbollah military wing, the second highest ranking Hezbollah official and probably the most important member of the military. And that's a good thing. Do you understand that to be a static battlefield or one on which Israel is got the United States backing to do what it has to do in southern Lebanon?
Well, first off, Hugh, I don't know about you, but if I were a leader inside of Hezbollah at any level, I'd probably try to make contact with Israel and tell them I don't want to be a part of Hezbollah anymore.
Yeah, how do I come over?
Well,
yeah,
I'll tell you where all my former buddies are. Look, Israel utterly devastated Hezbollah's leadership a little over a year ago. They've taken a lot of their weapons and other resources. Hezbollah is not yet over and done for, but I think if they are going to be disarmed, just like Hamas in Gaza, in the end, it's going to be the Israeli Defense Forces. It's not going to be any kind of international force. I mean, we've had that with Hezbollah in Lebanon for years with UNIFIL, and the idea that they're going to go in and disarm Hezbollah in firefights is just preposterous. It's going to be the Israeli Defense Forces, and the United States should back the IDF to the hilt to finally eliminate once and for all.
Well, Senator, we just lost you because you're somewhere in Arkansas that is yet to develop cellular, but we appreciate your talking to us and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. A reminder to everyone in my audience, now is the time to send a child a Christmas present through Angel Tree. And you can do that at HughHewitt.com. There's a banner at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. Every year I do this. Every year, tens of thousands of dollars come in $25 and $50 and $100 checks. Cost $30 to provide a Bible, a present, a note from mom or dad on Christmas morning. It matters so much to these kids. Some of you have been doing this for 25 years. The need is always there. So please, if you're feeling generous, $150 will bless 5 children this Christmas. 5 children of prisoners with an extra special Christmas. Just go to HughHewitt.com. The banner is at the top. You cannot miss it. Or call 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. $500 would be great, too. Thank you. We spent a lot of the weekend nailing down the fact that that video by the 6 Democratic legislators encouraging troops not to disobey illegal orders was absolute idiocy. And they all took a turn, right? Here is cut number 3. Alyssa Slotkin, who was in the video talking to Martha Raddatz on ABC, cut number 3.
So I think the reason we put that statement out is because the sheer number of, frankly, young officers who are coming to us and saying, I just am not sure. What do I do? You know, I'm in Southcom and I'm involved in the National Guard. I'm just not sure. What do I do? And I think, look, you don't have to take my word for it. We've had report after report of legal officer, JAG officers coming forward and saying, look, I push back on this. I'm not sure that this is legal. There is such things as illegal orders. That's why it's in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Going back to Nuremberg, right? And it's a totally benign statement. And if the president is concerned about it, then he should stay deeply within the law. But I think it's important to know it's not hypothetical, right? This president in the last administration, asked his Secretary of Defense and his chairman of the Joint Chiefs to, quote, shoot at their legs at unarmed protesters in front of the White House that he wanted moved.
Actually, I know you're talking about Mark Esper's book. He didn't exactly say that. He said the president suggested that, but they were never ordered to do that.
And he got out of the Oval Office quickly so that he wasn't told to actually do it. And I give him a lot of credit for that.
But he didn't do it. Okay, cut number 4.
Let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes. And everything related to
I made it up. Let's go to Jason Crow, another one of the absolutely ridiculous 6 who made this charge last week. Cut number 5 on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan.
Of what you had in that video you released, because there are also 15 House Republicans who are also veterans who released a video, including a retired 3-star Marine Corps General, Jack Bergman. Take a listen to this.
Troops, listen up. Any service member who refuses a lawful order is subject to court-martial for violating the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
We study what's lawful and what's not lawful, and the Democrats stunt insinuating that they're illegal or unconstitutional orders. It's downright dangerous.
It is corrosive. It is meant to weaken our country and weaken the military.
How do you respond to these allegations from your colleagues, fellow veterans, that what you have put out there is weakening and corrosive to the military?
Well, these unfortunately are some of Trump's core supporters that are rallying behind the president, and they know better. They know exactly the difference between lawful versus unlawful. We were very clear in the video that what we're talking about is unlawful orders. You have the president's spokesperson going into a press conference this past week and saying that we called for people to disobey lawful orders. They're simply lying because the truth is unacceptable to them. It's unacceptable. We wanted to start a conversation, and we did, about the dangerous rhetoric this president is using and the threats that he's made to use our military in an unlawful way.
Specifically what?
Well, send troops into Chicago, send troops into polling stations, kill terrorists' families, arrest and execute members of Congress.
He hasn't done any of that, is what Margaret said, because he hasn't done any of that. Maggie Goodlander was at bat on MS Now with Alex Witt, cut number 6. Did cut number 6 freeze? That's unfortunate because she's just as bad as the rest of them. Perhaps we can go down to Jake Auchincloss on cut number 8 and see if that works.
If they are going there where they did, do you think they should have been more explicit about the contours of what they think is actually illegal?
I think the burden of proof on respecting the integrity of the military does not lie on these patriots and veterans who are serving in Congress. It lies on the President of the United States, who has entertained the idea of using the military to aid and abet the insurrection that he launched.
You know, they don't have to prove anything because the burden of proof is on the president to prove a negative, which can't be done. Let's go back to Maggie Goodlander, cut 6.
What illegal orders are you urging troops to refuse, and what do you hope they take away from your message?
Alex, we love this country. We love our Constitution. It is our job as lawmakers.
Stop. Why can't someone answer the question? The question is, what orders are you talking about? The 6 of them have been asked that 20 ways to Sunday. Not one of them has been able to come up with one illegal order because they made it all up. It's absolute gibberish and nonsense. It's embarrassing to them. It's confusing to the E1s and E2s who might have just gotten into the military. It is a stupid stunt by people who have nothing to run on, nothing to say, because Donald Trump is doing a good job. So they're making up stuff. It's the same as Russia. the first two impeachments over and over again. They have TDS, and it's a terminal case. Vic Mattis is my guest. He is the arts and culture editor, the weekend editor of the Washington Free Beacon, and I'm sure he's an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. Am I right about that, Vic?
Well, it really depends, Hugh. If I'm at Hillsdale College, I'm all about Michigan. And if I happen to be in Ohio, I won't mention that. But as you know, I did go to Georgetown, which is another powerhouse football team. And they take on some very serious teams like Bucknell, Lehigh, so look out for that. They do have a very good basketball team this year. So I'm very excited. And once again, I'm back interested in college sports just for basketball.
Now, Vic, I have got my Hillsdale tie on today. It's an H tie, so I don't often wear it on the air because people think I'm wearing a tie in honor of myself. But it's actually the Hillsdale H. When do you go to Hillsdale? Do you work with John Miller occasionally?
I do indeed. I work with John Miller, giving talks to these very bright, eager students. They're just terrific minds when you meet with these young kids. Gives you a lot of hope. All is not lost, but you got to go to a school that's, normal. Hillsdale gets this, is characterized as being basically conservative and old-fashioned, but all it is what a college used to be like before we went all insane.
I've probably asked you this before, Vic, and forgive me if I've forgotten. Why did you pick Georgetown?
Oh, I wanted to join the Foreign Service. I wanted to be a diplomat, a Foreign Service officer, and they had the best school, the School of Foreign Service. So ever since I was like a sophomore or a junior in high school, that's where I wanted to go. And that's what I studied for 4 years, international politics, and everything was going great until I failed the Foreign Service exam. And then that's why I ended up in journalism.
Vic, you must have been quite a nerd in high school. Did you do Model UN? I did speech team, so it's not like I'm accusing you of anything I wouldn't accuse myself of. But did you do Model UN?
I did not. I was National Honor Society president, and I was also mock trial. I was 4 years, eventually serving as a lawyer on the team that went to and won the county championship. So that's what I did, and tennis. But that's not quite the same as football in high school.
Now, aren't you glad you flunked the Foreign Service exam? Because have you ever watched The Diplomat? The one with where the British ambassador actually has a job?
Yeah, no, I have not seen that. People have told me about that show. I am thankful. It is a hard job being a Foreign Service officer. You're moving every 2 to 3 years. You have hardship posts. It's hard to start a family and settle down anywhere. And you're oftentimes, I think, prone to, getting weird ideas and thoughts and opinions, mainly from the left. I think it's hard not to in certain environments. It would have been quite a challenge. Plus, my wife, she also likewise went to Georgetown, did not make it to the Foreign Service, so we were perfect for each other.
Did you meet each other at Georgetown?
Yes, we did. But I didn't date her until years later because she was out of my league.
Okay, now tell me something about Georgetown. Is it Catholic in any way, shape, or meaningful form anymore?
I still have friends who are at Georgetown, and particularly a very good Jesuit friend there who may be the last, of the conservative holdouts at Georgetown. So I don't want to get into too much into the weeds, but it is worrisome to a certain extent. And a professor there actually told me that my son, who's applying to colleges, would have a better education at Benedictine than he would at Georgetown.
Well, I was about to, in Kansas, absolutely. I was about to ask, you do have a college-age kid. How goes the application process in this craziest of times?
Well, we are waiting to hear back from his early binding application to the University of Virginia, which is where I was with Mary Catherine last week. We took a Getting Hammered on the road and met with some great kids at the Blue Ridge Center. I'm not sure when we're going to put that all together, talking about how Trump tapped into the UFC vibe and winning the 2024 election.
Now, what's interesting about your son, why did he pick UVA as his early commit? Because that did not exist back in the dark ages when I applied, where you had to seal in blood a commitment letter if you got in early.
Yeah, it is basically seal in blood. I mean, it's serious enough that I, as a parent, had to sign off, which means there are obviously legal implications. And if he does get accepted, you must withdraw from all other schools that you have applied to. And it locks you in So on the one hand, it does slightly boost your chances of getting into a school because it shows them that you're guaranteed to go there. You're not going to turn them down. That's the one thing that these college admissions people hate. On the other hand, you'll never know how you do with applications to other schools, whether it be Hillsdale or Notre Dame or anywhere else. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, there are still good students and teachers there at the University of Virginia. There's a great Catholic presence there, the Catholic Hoos, as they are called. And people that I've spoken to who have kids who go there, they've only had great things to say. And Professor Gerard Alexander of the Blue Ridge Center, he's there at the University of Virginia. And obviously, Hugh, the other big factor is being Virginia residents. The tuition is significantly cheaper than if he were to pay, let's say, $80,000 at another school outside of the state.
You know, it's a good thing that 17-year-olds never change their minds between fall and June, right? It's a really good thing that they're not growing and developing so that they can lock in a choice. But that's a good choice. It's probably among the top 5. I never ranked them 1 through 5, but there's a clearly 5 most beautiful campuses in the United States, and the University of Virginia is one of them. Do they live on campus all 4 years?
I think so. I think there are some students, upperclassmen, who get to live off campus and they can rent. But I mean, I know that freshman year at University of Virginia, you're required. You live in the dorms. But there are different houses, and obviously a lot of different fraternities. It's a very large Greek system there as well, and other houses where students live and stay in close in touch with each other. For example, where my son goes to high school, a number of those high school alumni, they all live together in the same house. So that's nice to know that they all stick together.
If you haven't already done it, I would encourage you to write an essay on applying for colleges 2025, because it changes every 5 years. It's a radically different thing. Do they still have the Common App now where you can apply to like the 100 schools with a keystroke?
That's the problem. This is why you have too many kids applying to too many colleges now. It used to be 6 or 7 because you had to handwrite them. Now you can apply to 100 schools.
Well, I would love to read a Vic Mattis reflection on the art of applying for colleges, because I've always thought it was a unique torture for parents and child alike, at least after I got in. Vic Mattis, follow him at Victorina Mattis, and we'll be looking for the Getting Hammered episode soon. It's game week. It's also Thanksgiving week. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt has been in and out of the house like 30 times today to get stuff and bring it back and get stuff and bring it back. There will be a gathering of the clan that will be fairly large this weekend. Looking forward to it. I will be in charge of taking T-Rex Teddy and others to the playground so that they can run themselves into the ground before dinner, so that they might just eat the rolls more slowly. What else do 3-year-olds do except eat the rolls? I don't think they can eat Relief Factor. Maybe if I take a bunch of Relief Factor with me, I'm in the Relief Factor studio, so I got lots of Relief Factor. I can take that at Thanksgiving and offer that to the kiddos, but they only need 1 packet a day, and they're not particularly prone to the minor aches and pains that come with aging and exercise. Now, they got lots of bumps and bruises. Like Teddy had like a V in his head. I don't know where it came from, but it was a very, very V for victory. But Relief Factor is actually for the older people around. If you're exercising and you're older, or you're just getting older and you've begun to feel it, don't. You don't have to. Take your Relief Factor. $19.95 gets you a 3-week starter pack. That's less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. The starter pack is pretty easy to use. 3 packets of Relief Factor a day, 4 pills in each packet for the first week, 2 packets a day for the second, and then you're on the 1 packet a day for the maintenance program for as long as you want to be free of those minor aches and pains and don't want to take over-the-counter Tylenol, Aleve, Advil, whatever it is, aspirin. No. Take the all-natural anti-inflammatory supplement, Relief Factor. It's the only one I've taken my entire life. I've been taking it for almost 13 years come January. Love this stuff. You can call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or go to their website, relieffactor.com. Now, let me talk to you about Angel Tree. I do this every year. I do it a lot. I remind you again, I love Prison Fellowship. They do such great work. They have, Chuck Colson was a friend of mine when he was alive. And I don't know where the idea for Angel Tree came, but it's a great blessing on children. It's not their fault that mom or dad is in jail, sometimes both parents. It's not their fault that Christmas is a great time of joy and celebration for some of their friends, but their mom is in jail or prison or their dad is in jail or prison, you can help make Christmas morning really shine bright for them, but with a donation of $30. $30 allows Prison Fellowship, the Angel Tree people, to get out there and give another gift. They do three things. $30 gives a present, $30 gives a Bible, $30 delivers a note from mom or dad on Christmas Day from wherever they are incarcerated, letting their child know that they have not been forgotten, that their mom or dad loves them and knows them and thinks about them, and not just their father in heaven, but their mother or father in prison. It's a great and wonderful thing to do. Maybe $30 is a heavy lift for you, maybe it's not, but whether you can do 30, 60, 90, 150, 300, 3,000, thank you in advance. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com, or you can call 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764, or go to HughHewitt.com. Wait for that banner to load. It's completely secure. We've been using it for years without any problems. Thank you in advance for your generosity. I'm joined by Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy. Admiral, a good Thanksgiving week to you. I would like for you to sort out for us the reports on the Russia-Ukraine-U.S. negotiations. I frankly have not been reading them all that closely because they say very contradictory things, and I don't know how to decode them. How do you read it?
Well, thanks for having me, and happy Thanksgiving week to you as well, Hugh. And look, you're right to be confused. I'm confused, and I sometimes think I know what I'm talking about. So here's what I would say. It started out with not an appropriate opening gambit. And I think that was largely a Russian piece. I mean, Putin denied it, but I think it was largely a Russian piece. And of course, that gets an overreaction going in the United States that was uncomfortable. But now that we're sitting down at the table led by Marco Rubio, and I can't emphasize enough, I think, how important that is, led by Marco Rubio, hopefully we'll begin to work through the unacceptable language and find the middle ground where there is concessions by both Russia and Ukraine, only one of which has really happened to date, and that's Ukraine. And then we can have a deal, a ceasefire that's meaningful and has a chance of surviving. And so Secretary Rubio is going to work through what I think are about three big issues that have to do with territorial integrity, post-ceasefire security guarantees, and Ukrainian access to an appropriate defense industrial base process.
Well, let me start with the first one. Senator Cotton was on earlier, and I reminded him I'm doing with Dr. Larry Arnn, president of Hillsdale College, a close read of The Gathering Storm. And Munich came down to Hitler's demand and Chamberlain and the French government's concession of the fortresses along the Czechoslovakian border. Once those were given away, the game was given away, and Hitler just swallowed the rest of Czechoslovakia when he wanted to. The Russians keep asking for things that the Ukrainians can't give. Am I right about that? Fortress-like defensible lines that they're just not going to surrender?
I think that's the right way to say it. Defensible lines that are properly prepared to delay and probably defeat Russian advances. And they're being asked to give those away. And then the land behind it, that Russia already occupies, to concede its sovereignty with U.S. recognition. That, I think those are just combined are two unacceptable conditions. But the most unacceptable is actually the one you identified, the first one. Because if you give those away, if you concede too much territory, you create a fairly open plain for Russian maneuver warfare, especially if you constrict the size of the future Ukrainian army, and you don't have coalition of the willing ground forces like French and British occupying the front line as basically a Berlin brigade, to draw Europe into any kind of guarantee Europe's participation in any future conflict.
So what is that geography that is so important, Admiral? Is it a mountain range? Is it a valley with a river at the bottom of it? What is it that we're talking about?
Some of them are riverbanks, you're right. Some of them are areas where you could properly dig in and create a defensive position with favorable terrain on the backside of it for the defensive forces. it's not mountain ranges. That's not part of this. So it's mostly water and maneuverable ground space. Some places are more marshy and swampy and can't be maneuvered through rapidly. But it's that, and it's the defensive fortifications that have already been built by the Ukrainians to prevent Russian movement. And they have been highly successful. I mean, I grant that Russia has done small land gains over their offensive this summer, very small, but an incredible human sacrifice that I have to believe there is eventually an endpoint for this for Russia, that you can't lose 100,000 people dead a year, 300,000 people injured, seriously injured a year, or dead, and continue this kind of battle. There is a human limit to the Russian sacrifice as well.
Now, on the question about the occupying force, it's not NATO, but it's not nothing. Who are we talking about, and what numbers as a tripwire?
Look, this is my answer, not anybody in Europe's answer yet. I think they need 20,000 troops minimum, ground forces. I think the vast majority of that comes from two countries in large units, and that is the UK and France. After that, there's smaller unit numbers from willing countries like the Baltic states, Romania, Poland, some others, potentially Scandinavians and Dutch and Belgian. But those will be, by definition, smaller battalion and below units. And so you can't have too many of those. Those disaggregate rapidly in combat. Whereas, the two large units, the Brits and the French, have to provide large units to which those other units are aligned so that you get the maximum firepower out of them. And look, part of it's about actually stopping conflict. And the other part is a deterrent one that says, if you cut through our people, we will be here in perpetuity to ensure you don't.
Have you seen any evidence on the part of, and I don't read the French press, I do read the British press, have you seen any willingness on the part of the Starmer government to do that?
They've talked to it, and then you're right. I have not seen the detailed planning that would support that, but they have in the past talked to a willingness to commit to that. This is more like, every time there's a legitimate discussion of a ceasefire, the Brits and the French begin to discuss this. The problem here is this discussion right up front, this one was so dismissive of it, it hasn't encouraged the discussion of it to the degree you normally get. I do think both those countries would commit to this. I do think whether they would commit 5,000 to 7,000 troops each, that's really hard to sustain at a 3-for-1 rotation, which is what you'd have to do. That would tie up a significant, an almost complete amount of their maneuver warfare.
Well, now, final question. The industrial base to support what Ukraine needs. Is that weaponry that we have, that we sell to the Europeans, that they give to the Ukrainians, ATACMS, tanks, anti-tank weaponry? What are we talking about?
And air defense systems. Exactly. It's PEARL, the PURL initiative that President Trump has championed. It's the idea of Europe buys about $2 to $3 billion a month worth of gear from us, from our defense industrial base. Some of it's drawn down from our forces where it's available, which isn't much anymore. Most of it comes from head of the line at the kind of after the U.S. at the defense industrial base. And then that $2 to $3 billion a month is then transferred to Ukraine as it's produced, paid for by the Europeans, provided by the Americans, jobs for the United States, kind of a win for us. And Ukraine has the equipment. The problem is PEARL has not taken off. It's more in the $1 billion a month right now. And then the U.S. has done something where they've held weapons and said, well, we have a stockpile issue. And, that puts the whole program at risk when you do that.
Admiral, in terms of our commitment to that, do we have the capacity to take care of ourselves, Taiwan, and the Ukrainians and everything they need?
Look, not in everything we need, but in the vast majority of things we need. So in the extended range attack munition, which I mentioned to you before, is a F-16 or MiG-29 launched long-range weapon. It's a beautiful weapon. I mean, the president should love this weapon. It's a low-cost missile built by the United States. It's unique. It shows our defense industrial base can be agile. Now, this was done by non-primes, but great weapon system. ATACMs, they're available now. Fire sale. The Army's shifting to a different weapon system. Some artillery. The place we're going to have a problem is Patriots, and to a lesser degree, the AMRAAM missile that goes on the NASAMS. These are both air defense weapons. Those are the problems where we have demand signal for ourselves, for our forward forces deployed. The Taiwanese are starting to have a demand signal for that. The Japanese have a demand signal. And now the United States has now Ukraine has a demand signal that we would service. But those are already being ordered. The president and President Zelensky made a big deal on this for up to 25 batteries of Patriot over the next 7 years.
Well, then, with that kind of a demand signal, don't they build I don't know who builds the Patriot, whether it's Raytheon or whatever. Don't they build a second plant somewhere?
So that's exactly what's happening. Raytheon, the Army is starting to generate a requirement to go from 3,000 missiles or 4,000 missiles to 13,000 missiles of Patriot.
Whoa!
Now, I don't think they'll ever get to that because these are, 3 million, 4 million apiece. That's pretty expensive stuff. But surely that demand signal will drive Raytheon, you were correct, they are the producer, to increase production capacity. In fairness to Raytheon, the United States demand signal is quite a sine wave on this over the last 20 years. It's very hard to make the investments necessary.
Well, Admiral Mark Montgomery, thank you for the review of that. I'm sure we'll be talking about the same thing next week or the week thereafter because it's all blizzard and smoke right now, and I can't really tell what's going on, but I hope you've laid out good parameters. Thank you, Admiral. Every year, like it or not, for 25 years, it's been my bump music for this week, and most of those years have been good. Not the last 4, though. Especially not last year when they weren't cheating. The 3 years before that when they were cheating, I don't really mind in retrospect. Let me go and give you Secretary Rubio's summary in Geneva on the status of the Russia-Ukraine negotiations. It's the best summary. Doesn't say much, but what you hear, you can take to the bank. Cut number 1.
We had a very good day today. I think we made a tremendous amount of progress, even from the last time I spoke to you, and I apologize for keeping you waiting, but there was more work to be done. We began almost 3 weeks ago with a foundational document that we socialized and ran by both sides, and with input from both sides. And one of the things that happens when you've been involved in this now for 10 months is you get a pretty good sense of what the priorities and the red lines and the important issues are for both sides. And so that allowed us to create a foundational document, which has been an ongoing working document. In fact, over the last 96 hours or more, there's been extensive engagement with the Ukrainian side, including our Secretary of the Army and others being on the ground in Kyiv, meeting with relevant stakeholders across the Ukrainian political spectrum in the legislative branch and the executive branch and the military and others to further sort of narrow these points. We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take is 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way. Now, obviously, like any final agreement, they'll have to be agreed upon by the presidents, and there are a couple issues that we need to continue to work on. But I think the report today is that I think today was worthwhile. It was very, very, it is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue. Maybe in the entirety of our engagement, but certainly in a very long time. But work remains, and because this continues to be a working process, I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done, but we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began this morning and where we were a week ago for certain.
So I like that. It doesn't tell us much, but it doesn't give you false hope, doesn't give you an end of hope either. It's right there in the middle. They're working the problems, and they'll see what comes up. I don't believe any report. I don't believe any leaks. I'll just wait for the Secretary of State to tell me what's in it and whether the sides have agreed to it. Now, before I go to what the House Republicans did in response to that idiotic incendiary video by 6 dummies who are Democrats saying don't obey illegal orders, that blew up all weekend, and they all looked worse. All 6 of them looked worse. Before I do that, let me redeem the moment by saying you can help a kid have Christmas, a kid who has mom or dad in jail, and just pause for a moment and think about what that's like. You probably have not experienced that. You wake up on Christmas morning and you don't expect anything from mom or dad because mom or dad is in jail and have been in jail for a while and are going to be in jail for a while, and maybe you don't get to see them very often, but you know they're out there. And you go out and you get underneath the tree, if you have a tree, and there is, in fact, a present from mom and or dad. There's also a Bible. There's also a note from your mom or your dad wishing you a Merry Christmas, telling you how much they love you and you are in their thoughts. That is all facilitated by Angel Tree and Ministry of Prison Fellowship. They have done it all these 25 years I've been on the air. They are amazing in what they do. Every year they build better and bigger, and they reach more kids. And not only do they deliver the present and the Bible and the note, they bring the child into their organization. They connect them up with a church. They do their best to connect them up with community and keep them in the lives of people who know how tough they've got it. And you can make that happen for $30 a child. And if you can afford 90 and take care of 3 kids, that's great. If you can afford to do 10 kids and send $300, that's better. The banner for making a contribution is at hughhewitt.com at the very top. You cannot miss it. Picture of child and a Christmas tree animated up there on the top, completely secure. Or if you're old-fashioned and you want to call it in, and there are some of you who do that way, 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. 888-206-2764. You'll never meet these kids to the other side of heaven, and then they'll be there to thank you for making one Christmas, at least one, wonderful. Thank you for doing that. Now I want to go to what the House Republicans put together over the weekend in response to that idiotic video by the Democrats who had served in uniform of the CIA urging people not to obey illegal orders, which got them a rash of blowback, and they deserved every bit of it. Here's the House Republican video, cut number 11.
We must be loyal to the oath that we swore to stand firmly with America.
I'm Congressman Jim Baird.
I am Joe Wilson.
Representative Nick LaLota.
Congressman Zach Nunn.
Representative John McGuire. Representative Keith Self.
Congressman Rich McCormick.
Representative Barry Moore.
Representative Rick Crawford.
August Pfluger.
Congressman Andrew Clyde.
Congressman Tom Barrett.
Former Navy.
Former Vietnam Army combat veteran.
Retired Colonel of the South Carolina Army National Guard. Marine Corps pilot.
Former member of the Alabama National Guard. Former Army Special Forces Green Beret.
Former U.S. Army soldier.
An Air Force veteran.
28-year Navy officer.
United States Army. After my active duty service, I joined the intelligence community.
As a former Navy SEAL veteran, I want to speak directly to the members of the military and our intelligence community.
I want to speak directly to the members of the military and the intelligence community.
I want to speak directly to the members of the military and the intelligence community. Like you, I raised my right hand because I love this country. I believe in something bigger than myself.
That freedom is not free.
My oath was clear. Uphold the Constitution.
That commitment is powerful.
We all understand the importance of the chain of command.
Troops, listen up. Any service member who refuses a lawful order is subject to court-martial for violating the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
We study what's lawful and what's not lawful, and the Democrats stunt insinuating that they're illegal or unconstitutional orders. It's downright dangerous.
It is corrosive. It is meant to weaken our country and weaken the military.
Do not give in. Stand firm in your duty.
Protect the American populace from an enemy that would do us harm. That's the right thing to do, and that is a lawful order.
Your commitment to this nation is vital.
Stay focused on the mission, defend the Constitution, and remember the oath we took to defend America.
Remember the promise we made, so help us God.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Troops, thank you for serving. Continue to prepare for the fight.
I like that a lot. I think it answers it completely. When you've lost Joe Scarborough, and the Democrats did over their idiocy, he took aim at Alyssa Slotkin, the Michigan senator, who probably got the ball rolling on this morning's Morning Joe. Cut number 10.
Okay, wrong answer.
Well,
I'm sorry, with all due respect, wrong answer. President of the United States, the commander-in-chief does have, Jonathan Lemire, wide latitude. Just does. And the Senate can take that up, but he has wide latitude on strikes. Ask Barack Obama and drone strikes. Ask George W. Bush and drone strikes. But where we know the president has said, I am going to give illegal orders to people in the military, is when he was on Air Force One, coming back, I forget where he was coming back from, but he said, I can send the Marines, I can send the Army, I can send the Air Force, I can send the Coast Guard into any city I want to control crime. And the courts can't do anything about it. That's illegal. It's just illegal. And so Democrats kind of need to If the president has already said, I'm going to commit this illegal act, then I'm kind of surprised they don't have the answer when they go on a Sunday show for that.
Yeah. If the president had given an illegal order, they would have the answer. But he hasn't, so they didn't. I'm in the Relief Factor studio. I want to remind you at the beginning of this segment, I take it every day in hour number 1. I remind you in hours 2 and 3 that the Relief Factor studio allows me to do my program from wherever I am as often as I want to do it, for as long as I want to do it, and to make it real for you. Relief Factor does work. All you have to do is call 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, or go to their website, relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. And when you do that, you'll find that the starter pack is there available for $19.95 at relieffactor.com, $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. The phone number is 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief, 1-800, the number 4, and the word relief. Or simply remember relieffactor.com. The starter pack is at their website as well, relieffactor.com. You'll love me for it. Did my 6 miles today. Got to get 6 more in before the family begins to arrive. So back-to-back 6s on Monday and Tuesday. Not my normal thing. I should be a little bit sore, but I won't be because of relieffactor.com. Now I want to go back to the story of the weekend, the idiotic video from the Democrats. Ari Fleischer on Fox with Sandra Smith had a lot to say. Cut number 9.
When I saw that video last week, my instant reaction was all the things I've seen in all my time in Washington, we've hit a new low. I don't care how much you oppose Donald Trump. You do not interfere in the military chain of command. And people who are in the military, someone who was in the CIA, they of all people should know that. So whatever you oppose, you have a higher duty to the Constitution and to the military chain of command. And that should be obeyed. It must be obeyed when you're in uniform, and it should be obeyed when you're out of uniform and retired. This was one of the lowest, most dangerous, worst things I've ever seen because they're trying to interfere with the chain of command.
So,
Ari is not given to overstatement. Ari is very level-headed. He's center-right. He's the definition of normal. And he reacts the way most Americans who play between the 40s react, sometimes between the 20s. But Ari never loses it, and he's right. He had the same reaction I had, which is that was way outside the field of play. And the Democrats involved in it will never not be involved in it. That'll follow him forever because they accuse the president of making illegal orders, and of course he hasn't made illegal orders. It sows division and dissent among the troops. Dangerous, destructive, absolutely no meaning behind it. Not even good virtue signaling. Not even good politics. It's just stupid. Now let me go to Amy Klobuchar, who was not in the video. All right, I want to make that clear. She didn't make it, but she got asked about it by Kristen Welker on Meet the Press on Sunday. Cut number 7.
I wonder, do you know what the specific illegal acts are that your Democratic colleagues were referring to there?
Well, it's very clear in this code for the military that you cannot follow unlawful orders. And, that would be, I'll just use an example. Some of the judges have now found in certain cities that it is not legal to send in the National Guard. And those National Guard members have come home. Some of them are still there. But if their commander were to tell them, hey, go out on the streets and do this and that, that's not following the order that is in law. So I just use that example. I'm sure my colleagues would have.
Actually, that hasn't happened. That is a bad example. If a commander in a National Guard unit says, go out and guard Union Station, you go and guard Union Station, you let the lawyers battle it out. That is not an illegal order that was cited by anyone. None of those have been the case. Where he's been challenged in court, he's always appealed, always obliged by the law. Wherever he's been told to stop, he stopped. Wherever he's been told to proceed, he's proceeded. There has not been one illegal order given, not one executed, and she could not answer a direct question because there is no answer. It was that dumb. Now, let me return you to reality. Senator Eric Schmidt had a good thing to say about the Russia-Ukraine-U.S. negotiations. I wanted you to hear it. Cut number 2.
I think
Senator
President
Schmidt
Trump
on Fox News Sunday.
Is this
as a realist, right? You take the world as it is, not how you want it to be, not how you wish it would be, but actually how it is. And the truth of the matter is, and a lot of people won't say it, is the Ukrainians have been losing for a long time. They've lost 20% of their territory. They have a manpower problem. They have a munitions problem. I think what President Trump is trying to accomplish is maintain Ukrainian sovereignty, make sure there's a pathway to rebuild the country, and also lessen the likelihood that this will ever happen again. And so they put forward a proposal, a framework. Secretary of State Rubio, the Secretary of the Army Driscoll, they're all in Geneva right now working with the Ukrainians, working with the Europeans to try to get to some consensus here on the 28 points. I would say that most of those, at least half of those, have been talked about for a long time, and there's a lot of agreement. So you got to narrow the gap now and try to get to a place where you recognize the realities on the ground. And I have to say that the Washington consensus has been so wrong about this, Shannon, for so long, and they've been wrong about a lot of things over the last 30 years. President Trump is coming in and saying, we want to actually end the killing, because the people that are critical of this right now, they don't really have another plan. And they live in this fantasy world that another round of sanctions or another round of weapons or another round of cash is going to solve the problem, and it won't. And so I think you recognize the realities and you try to bring the parties together to end the war and make sure this doesn't happen again.
That's what you try and do. That's what is happening, and hopefully it will succeed. Music you'll be hearing all week long. It's already driven Dwayne crazy, but I'm sure Doug LeMarie's my guest, has heard it for years. Doug is the co-host of the Bill and Doug Show, which you can get a free 2-week trial subscription to right now, if I'm not mistaken. That will get you through the game, which is this weekend in Ann Arbor, and next weekend's game in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship. Doug, I thought I would pose this question to you this way. I'm not going to do Monday Magic and Misery, although feel free to add it if you've made a list. But if a alien arrived from outer space and they landed in the United States and they learned that football matters, how would you explain the game to them?
It's religion, right? It's almost to that level. It's identity, right? That's the thing here. Yes. It's not a game. It's who you are. And it's not one Saturday on the last Saturday in November. It's 365 days a year. And that is the thing that college football has that is just different than almost every sport in America, that it is such the fabric that you become it and it becomes you. And it represents a way of life. It creates tribes for people in certain ways. And it's for people, it's their Christmas. It's their Thanksgiving, Hugh. There are plenty of Ohio State fans that I know it's their favorite day of the year is the last Saturday in November when Ohio State plays Michigan. And it's been happening for well over a century. That's the thing, too, right? That there's real tradition and history to this, and it unites generations. You sit down and your grandma and your grandpa tell you stories, and you're going to tell your grandchildren stories, and it's all about a football game.
Yeah, there are rituals. My analog is, in politics, every 4 years we have election day, and it's endless. It goes on forever because you don't learn anything until 11 o'clock at night and you wait for gossip. What is your ritual on game day, Doug LeMarie's?
Well, it's on your mind because it's always early. That's the one thing about this Ohio State-Michigan game, Hugh, is that it's almost always at noon. One time in 2006, they played it at 3:30 when it was number 1 versus number 2. But you don't have a lot of time to get ready for it. And so it is on you. And the thing of it is, especially now that it's in Thanksgiving week, the ritual starts the minute the previous game ends. So Ohio State played Rutgers on Saturday, Michigan played Maryland, and the moment those games ended, those games didn't matter anymore. No offense to Maryland and Rutgers. You were automatically on to the next thing, and it's all about that ritual, Hugh, for everybody is how do you prepare for it? So it's how do the players prepare? How do the coaches prepare? How do individuals prepare? Because you can't sit down at noon and flip on the game. You got to get ready, Hugh. So that morning, it's like you got to fuel up, you got to strap in, you got to be ready to go. You can't be monkeying around at 11:55. So you got to have a plan. Hearty breakfast helps, but it's on you.
So now I had a question this morning. I listened to you and Bill this morning talking about what Matt Patricia, who is the defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes, may or may not have been doing against Rutgers, and it was counterintuitive to me. Why would he show them that Arville Reese will probably be at the defensive end more than not, just to give the poor kid up in Michigan more to study and worry about? What was the thinking that he would put more on the tape rather than less?
Yeah, I think the idea, people talk about that a lot, Hugh. You put it on film and then you make somebody prepare for it. And then it's an extra thing. And if they spend 2% of their time preparing for that, that's 2% less they can prepare on something else. And then maybe you use it, maybe you don't. There are always a couple tricks. Again, the big one in the game that I always cite, in 2006, Jim Tressel lined up the fastest player on the field, Ted Ginn Jr., at tight end and ran him down the field for a touchdown pass. It was a surprise play. You want to have maybe one or two of those, but you also want to give them something to think about. It's a little bit of a rope-a-dope, Hugh, and you spread them out, right? There's more on their mind, and so they can't focus on what's really going to happen.
Lincoln Kienholz, do you expect to see him play on Saturday?
Yeah. I do. So this is, a lot of teams do this, Hugh. He's a backup quarterback. He's a big physical guy. He can run. He's not as much of a thrower, but you got to throw in the wrinkles. And then the thing about this, Hugh, as you know, Ohio State has two supremely talented receivers who are future first-round draft picks in the NFL. They're both injured. Neither played against Rutgers. We don't know exactly what's going to happen against Michigan. So if for some reason they can't play, or if they are limited, then you got to have something else in the hopper. And I like the backup quarterback throwing a couple wrinkles in. I think it's a good idea for Ohio State. I do expect to see him a little bit.
Okay, now yesterday I was watching the Browns and I saw Mason Graham handle NFL offensive linemen like they were butter. And we being the Buckeyes, I'm a Buckeye fan, tried to run against him, right at him last year. Are we going to do that again? Because they still have a pretty good, solid defensive line.
Yeah, there's no Mason Graham, though. So, no, I do not think that will be the plan. Michigan has had just two unbelievable defensive line players the past couple of years. Aiden Hutchinson, now with the Lions, was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. Mason Graham, now with the Browns, as you said, was the number 5 overall pick in the draft. And as you said, Ohio State ran right at him last year. Run away from that guy. Run away from that guy. Throw over that guy. I do think even if the receivers are injured for Ohio State, they will put more focus on the passing game. But the big thing, Michigan is still stout up front. They don't have top 10 picks up there, and that will make a difference, I think.
Now, Carnell Tate is 6'5". I know because I was talking to my son when we were watching the game. I said, he's not playing, but I think he's really tall. And I said, tall? How tall? I said, I'm not sure. I think he's pretty. He's 6'5". Does the defensive backfield of Michigan have anyone that can stop Carnell Tate?
No, not down the field like that. And he's great, right? He high points the ball, Hugh. He leaps. He gets up there. He's great. The contested catch, right? They call him 50-50 balls, but when you have a player like that, he's not going to get him half the time. He's going to get him 80% of the time. So I do think that's typically a strength for Ohio State, that their receivers, it's hard for anybody to match up with them. Will he play? We don't know. Jeremiah Smith, also a really big physical guy. Will he play? But Ohio State did not exploit those advantages enough last year. If they're out there, I think they'll throw to him a lot.
2 quick questions. 1, who's better, Marvin Harrison or Jeremiah Smith? And 2, is there a free offer at the Bill and Doug Show, OSU.substack.com?
Yes, there is. So Jeremiah Smith is probably the greatest receiver in Ohio State history, and it's amazing to say with all the receivers they've had. That's how good he is. You can catch us for free on YouTube and free on the podcast feeds, the Substack. You put Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com/The Game Special. That'll get you the free trial, Hugh.
The Game Special, Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com/The Game Special. You should try it for 2 weeks. It's absolutely pennies from heaven. Doug, thank you. Just sign up for it, actually. You'll be happier that you did. Great analysis this week, and I appreciate it. Talk to you next week. You know, I've only seen the game once. I've never been to a game at the Shoe. But I did go to the Big House when I was in law school at Michigan and saw Ohio State beat Michigan in 1982. And it was great fun. And I got to tell you right now, those people, it's a blood sport. It's a blood sport. Don't mess around. But it's a fabulous tradition. I know some of you have other little tiny traditions like Auburn, Alabama, tiny little traditions out there like Notre Dame and USC, minor traditions like Army, Navy. But the game is the game, and the game is Saturday. The good news, as Doug Lesmerises just said, is that the game is at noon. So you're celebrating, I hope, by 3:30. Now, the downside to the game being at 3:30 is that you got a whole afternoon and evening ahead of you if you doesn't go the right way. Now, that shouldn't happen this year. Objectively, the Buckeyes are just bad. They're the best team in the country. Doesn't mean they're going to repeat, because that requires 5 great games in a row. Actually, it requires 4 games out of 5. They got to beat Michigan, and then they want the number 1 seed. They're the best team. They want to beat Indiana at the Big Ten championship. But at Michigan, when they go up there, that is a loud place. The house is loud. We did the Michigan 10-miler in the days when I would run 10 miles, and you come into the tunnel when you run the Big Ten 10-miler, and it's kind of fun to go in, and you realize when you're on the field, that is a lot of people, and it's very, very noisy. So the crowd will be a factor on timing routes and things like that. But what a wonderful game it's going to be. What a great tradition. And I just want to pay my kudos to Bill Landis, who was spelling out stuff today. Bill and Doug run a great show because they don't assume facts not in evidence. They assume they're talking to fans who are not professional journalists and they're not coaches. They don't really know what's going on. And they explain it to you why the number of snaps that Arvell Reese took as defensive end versus linebacker, how many times Lorenzo Style is in, if he's not in, who's going to come in and play, and who's playing on the nickel, and Davidson, and how he is playing Igbinosa, and why he's not getting as many flags on him. It's just pure crack cocaine for college football lovers, especially if you love Michigan and Ohio State. And it's for free for 2 weeks. So I'm giving this to you as a courtesy of me. You know, to Bill and Doug Show OSU.substack.com/the game special. All right? Bill and Doug OSU.substack.com/the game special. And you got 2 weeks of the best college football. They're also on YouTube. They're also, I don't watch YouTube football stuff, though I should. And I listen to them when I'm out trundling because their podcasts are fabulous. That's my gift to you on Ohio State Week, the game. And there will be much more coming ahead in the next 2 days, and then turkey's on the way Thursday. Don't go anywhere, America. Thank you, Harley. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Generalissimo. Thank all of you for listening. Don't forget Angel Tree, the banner's at the top of HughHewitt.com.